Welcome back to this episode of this video. Now in this video we are going to learn about loops. So what are loops? So loops in JavaScript or in any script language can execute a block of code a number of times. So if you need to repeat something over more than one times, then you need to use what? Loops. So in this video we are going to learn about the following loops: for loop, for in loop, then we can also talk about the for off loop, while loop, and do while loop, and I will explain why we need each of these loops. So let's look at the for loop. So this I can wrap into a function, if you will, Control X, and put inside a function called condition. And if I save them there, it will not run. Remember, a function is not busybody. It only runs when you want it to run. So in this class, I want to learn about loops. The first one that we are going to learn is Shift Alt A, Shift Alt A. So you're going to learn about the for loop. So for loop, and this is the structure. You use the for keyword, then you use the start point, and the next argument is the condition. The next one is the increment. The next one is your code block. That is what you want to do when this loop, when the loop is running. So let's use a for loop to solve this simple programming problem. So let's generate a number from 0 to 10, and when we get to 10 we want to stop. So how do we do that? We use loop. So I'll use the for loop. And let's analyze. Now from the structure of this for loop, I want to know that the start point is what? 0. Then the end point is equal to what? 10. Now the condition now will be what? So a condition, so this is like, so since the start point is low and the end point is high, so this is like climbing a step from step 1 to the 10th step. So the next 2 points now is this start point, the end point will be needed in our condition. So now the condition now will not look like this. We are going to stop generating the number when the start point gets to the end point. So remember that the start point is 0, So we want to stop when the start point is less than or equal to what? To 10. So the condition will be if start point is less than or equal to 10. Now it then means if we put this condition now, the start point here will be 0 and the end point is what? 10. So is 10 greater than 0? This is what? True. Is it equal to 0? Is false. So remember, if you're using less than or equal to, if one of them is true, it returns true. So this is true, so the for loop will start to run. But immediately the start point gets equal to 10, then it will now return false and the loop will stop. So the increment will be to increment by 1. So you're going to put increment on so the increment in this case now is going to be what? Is going to be by 1. So let's put this to a good use. So let's implement this. So we'll say for. So we'll select I, which is our start point, equal to what? 0. Then while our I is less than or equal to 10, then put your semicolon, then you do I plus plus, then put a consider log I. You notice that if I bring up my browser and I save, sorry, not that place, I save here, you notice I'll have from 0 to 10. So that means our condition is wrong. Now, just a quick suggestion. If you are running loops, especially these primitive loops, that you have to indicate your start point, your end point, and your condition, you have to be very, very careful about your condition. Because if your condition is false, or if your condition will never end, it then means your loop will run forever. This means it has the power to crash your system. So this is very, very important because some people have said that JavaScript have crashed their system, and it's likely because of this type of loops. So be very, very careful. So to test if your condition is correct, always put it inside a console.log like this. Then you use your imaginary point, which is 0 here. So if I comment this out and save, and it gives me true, it then means this condition will what? This for loop will start. Now to see when to stop, if you put 10 here and it shows you true, then means it will what? It will continue to run, but just put 11 here. I see this now false. So it then means for this your condition is correct, but it can still crash your application if you're not incrementing. So you make sure that your start point always what? Increment by 1. So we're going to increment, let me put it here, increment start point by what? 1. So if you don't increment your start point, even though your condition is correct, to not run. So this is one of, so this is how you use the for loop. So I don't want to dive more into this because I want to actually discourage you from using this, because there are some other advanced loops that you can use so that you don't end up making a mistake that will harm your system. So it's very good for you to understand this concept before you use it. So the next one, control and /a, is a while loop. So now the while loop has this structure. So you have the start. So this is a while loop. So the start point is outside the loop. Then you have your while. Then you have your while. Then inside the while you have your condition. Then you have your increment. You have your increment. Then you have your code. So whatever you want to happen when this loop is found will be inside here. Now you see the structure of the while loop. It is not as well structured like the for loop, where everything is inside the full parenthesis. But for the while loop, you notice it is what? Outside. For the for loop, you can also arrange it like this, but if you arrange it like that, it will work. But in this while loop, it is a must. Only the condition must be inside. So let's use the while loop now to solve a similar problem that we did with our for loop, but this time it is different. So let's use while loop to reduce a number step by step from 10 to 1. So again, you analyze. So what is your start point? So your start point is what? Is equal to 10. Then what is your end point? Your end point is what? 1. So it then means that you are climbing from, you are at the 10th step and you're climbing down. Means you are descending. So now if you notice from this one that is here, because the start point was low and the end point was higher, we are ascending. So we start from the lowest point to the last point. So you notice we use less than equal to. So just imagine this less than as if you're going up, or as if, so if you are climbing from the low step to the high step, you use a less than, so that your condition will end. And because you are climbing from a low step to a high step, you have to what? Increment So if you're incrementing, this is another way you can also get it. If you're incrementing, then you would use a less than. But if you're decrementing, which is minus minus, you use a greater than. So that is another way to understand it. So now we'll move to the next one. The next one is our condition. So in our condition, our start point is 10. So we are going to say y10 is greater than or equal to what? 1. And we are going to decrement start point by what? 1. So if we add this, so if we do our console.log and we'll say our start point is 10, and we'll say greater than or equal to 1, is it going to be true? So you notice it returned true. Now if we reduce our start point as we did here, so if this is equal to 1, you notice it is still true, but let it now be what? 0. You notice it becomes false. So are you seeing the pattern now? So if our start point is low, is high, and our end point is low, it means that we are descending. So our increment will be what? Minus minus. And in our condition, we use greater than or equal to. Then in that way, our condition will not be an error as long as you are decrementing the start point. So let's do this. So since we have tested our condition, it will work. So what I'm going to do now is I will say let j be equal to what? The end point, which is what? The start point, which is 10. So I put while condition now, why this start point, which is j, is greater than or equal to 1. Then I'm going to put j minus minus. I'm going to consider log. I'm going to put consider log j. So let's analyze the structure. So the structure of the while loop is it will have the start point outside, which is our j here. Then it will have the condition, which is this here. Then it will have the increment or the decrement, depending on the one that you're doing. Then it will have the code block. So let's analyze. So if this is 10, remember it returned true. 1, it returned true. But anything less than 0, it returned false. And because you're decrementing, you can say that we are on the safe hand. So let's comment out this guy, and I can add something here. I put a backtick. J is equal to j. So that this means I'm dynamically injecting a variable into that. So if I save, you notice that we don't have any error. So if you're playing around this at home, make sure you are very, very sure of your condition, and make sure that whether you're using the while loop or the for loop, that your increment is in the right direction. So the next one I want to move to is the do while loop. Now you notice that if I put this condition as 0 here and save, you notice that nothing displays on my console because the condition is what? False, because it's at this condition that the loop is meant to what? Stop. So, but what if you want a loop to run at least once, even if the condition is false? Then that is when you use your do while loop. So for this same condition, I'm going to use my do while loop. So this is the structure of the do while loop. So Shift Alt A. So this is for the do while loop. So the structure is you have your do, then you have your code block, then you have your increment. In this case, let's use decrement. Then you have our code block. Then inside here we have our while, then our condition. So let's use the structure now to do exactly what we have here. And notice it will run at least once. So we already have our start point. So we have, so I'll say do, so y j minus this, then consider log, just copy this from here. So this is the value of j, then I want to put y. So the condition y j is, think if we are descending, we use greater than or equal to 1. So that is it. So let's verify the condition is the same, j greater than or equal to 1. Now j is 0 here. Now this is not meant to run, but for while loop, you notice from the structure it's going to run because the code block, it missed the code block, so it's execute the code block before it runs the condition. Whereas for while loop and for the for loop, it checks the condition before it executes the code block. So that is why when you are using do while loop, the loop will run at least once, even if the condition is false. So if I do this and save, you're going to see j is equal to what? -1. It ran at least once. So that is the reason for the do while loop. So another thing I want to show you when you're using the primitive loop is this. Let's say I change this back to 10. You notice that it's going to run. Now it's going to run from 90 what? 0. Now what if I wanted to stop if j is equal to what? 5. So that is possible. So if I put here, sorry, not that. If I put here, let if j is equal to 5, then break. So you remember this break we use in our switch statement. So if a primitive loop sees a break statement, it will exit the loop. So it will stop at 4, but it will not print out 5. So if I save this, you notice it ends. Sorry, let me close this. I will understand it. So it ends from, so once it reaches 5, so it will not print 5, so that means it will stop at 6. So it's correct. So that is it. But what if I want it to skip this 5, or if it's at 5, it should continue instead of break? So I'll show you the break on. Let me use another one. Continue. So this continue means it will not exit the loop, but it will just, once it meets this continue, it will not get to this point, rather it will just go back and reevaluate the condition, continue. So it will not print 5, but you see 4, just like that, until you get to 0. So if I save this, so you notice that it did not print 5, but you see 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is how you use the for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop. Now this for in loop is kind of advanced. Now this is the one I recommend you to be using from this one, because if you're using it, you don't need to worry yourself about the condition, because if you make a mistake in that condition, it can crash your application. So the for in loop is used to loop through the properties of an object. So remember what an object is. It is used to save. An object can save more than one value using key value pairs. So let's say let's have an object of user. Inside this user, the person has a name. So I will say Amadi Chile. Let's say the person also have an age. I'll put 969. age of Methuselah. Then I'll also put a country. I'll put Nigeria. So if I want to loop through this object, let's say I want to check if the age or if the country is exactly equal to Nigeria. So let me say I have a variable here, say let's check country should be equal to what? Nigeria. So what I'm going to use now, I'm going to use the for in loop. This is the structure of the for in loop. So Shift Alt A. So the for in loop, you say for, then you put the key in, you put object. So remember, the for in is only used for object, to loop through an object. So I'll put, so you put the name of the object variable here. Then you can now do something or have a code block. So let's use this format. So I'll have my key. This can be any value, but you can use key in, and I'll put user. So I'll now say if check country is equal to key, then I'll now say consider log user is a Nigerian, something like that. So let's check if this works. So if I save this, didn't work. I hope my spelling is correct. Nigeria, key user. Okay, so let's do it small. So let's remove this statement and put our consider key. So if we do that, I'll have country, age, name, country, and age. So the mistake I made here is this. I have to use something like this. So I have to say user, remember this you remember this bracket notation to accept part of an object. So I'll put my key. So it then means this is the same thing as me doing user.country, which will give me Nigeria, and this check country is what? It's Nigeria. So if I save this, I'll have that test. User is what? In Nigeria. So this has worked. Now if you use this for an array, it will not work. So let's say let's numbers be equal to random numbers 3, 44, 77, and instead of an array you now use numbers. Instead of an object you now use an array. So even if I remove this and save, it did work. But that is not meant to work. Okay, but the one that usually used to work is off. So if you use off, so you notice that in this instance it just showed me the key of the array, not actually what I wanted. So if you use this for an object, that is, if you use the for in, to just show you the keys of the object. And remember, for an array, it stores more than one value using index value pair. So now it's getting you the index, which is like the key. Then for an object, it stores more than one value using the key value pair. So that's why in the for in, it now returns the key, which you can use to get the object. But if we change this to off, now this is used for an array, so it will give you these values, which is 1, 44, and 77. So that is that. So in the next video we are going to learn about higher array methods.